And there it is. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a Thursday night stream. Normally don't do Thursday nights. I normally do Wednesday nights, but my guest today, who it's been pretty sure 300 episodes since he's been on. It feels like it does not feel like it's been that long, but I'll bring him up here in a minute. I got some showing to do, and obviously I want to tell you guys what we're going to be talking about today. The debates. I'm sure absolutely everybody watched it. I watched it twice, so that way hopefully you won't have to watch it once, or you won't have to watch it twice. But my guest today and myself are going to give some opinions on some of the stuff. He comes from a different perspective, but I very, very much so enjoy his perspective as well. And he's a very, very good person who was in the first 50 guests I had on. I think he was guest number 20. Yeah, 20 or 21. So it's been a while. Anyways, oh nice. He actually got notified. Anyways, yeah, the debates. They were funny. I got a lot of thoughts, especially after listening to it again. Anyways, make sure all the links below to find myself, everything I got going on. I put a description of my guest, and he'll obviously plug everything that he wants everybody to know out there as well. Tiger Fitness through the link below to get all your supplements and stuff like that to get yourself all jacked and tan. Fox and Sons Coffee, use code Kyle at checkout, and Deemed Fit, use code Sarah Matovic at checkout. All those links are below. If you hit Deemed Fit, then you should be taken right to the website, and the code should auto-populate. There's some really, really cool stuff that I'll probably be buying some more stuff. But anyways, you didn't come here to listen to me ramble about coffee, getting jacked, and all that stuff. You're here to listen to us talk about the wonderful debate that was the other night. So without further ado, let's get into it. And welcome back to the show, my dear friend Shane Chesher. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Excellent. Well, as I said in the introduction, it's been about 300 episodes, which it feels like just yesterday that I reached out to you, and all that stuff kind of went down with your job, which is just absolute insanity. But my understanding, and you can let the audience know not only who you are but how you're doing. It seems like things have been really uphill for you. So why don't you let the audience know, in case they're not familiar with you from all the way back then, who you are and kind of where your life's been the last couple of years.
Okay. Yeah, so that was going back to 2021. Hard to believe it will be 3 years since I got fired from Allegheny County for their tyrannical vaccine mandate. I filed a religious exemption. They denied all religious exemptions on the premises of undue hardship, even though we worked the whole pandemic. Um, and Cal had me on like right after I got fired. It was actually really awesome. It was a way for me to kind of process, but also get to speak my mind. And it was that was a blessing in itself. So that has just strengthened my walk with the Lord, and really gave me a sense of purpose and direction. So I just been I'm actually still in a lawsuit pro se against Allegheny County. It's still kind of treading water. When the legal system doesn't work that fast, when they don't want it to, and
Right, if you
uh,
owed them money, they'd want it today, but since they owe
exactly,
you money,
yeah.
you know.
And then so yeah, it's we I got past the motion to dismiss all that, so we're slowly gaining some treading, gaining some tread. But I work at a church now called Christ Church at Grove Farm for the past year. I actually got baptized yesterday. That's probably why Kyle, we couldn't do this episode yesterday. And that's pretty much it. I'm uh, just pushing through here in 2024. So.
Yeah, that's about all you can do anymore, but, yeah, I as I said in the pre-show, and I wanna say it for the, audience as well, I'm really, really glad that, the baptism and everything kinda went through for you and went well. I just find those events to be very, very beautiful, and I think, for people out there considering that, it's something that I've thought about quite a bit over the last couple of years, um, not just because of political stuff, but also personal stuff. Nothing like bad, but it's just, I feel more compelled to it over time. And, I'm sure much better than me, obviously. Sometimes just things in your life, eventually you feel a little bit more called to a higher power. And like there's something more out there than just, this is all we got. But I don't know. I haven't had any experiences. People typically cite like miracles or some wild experience. I haven't had anything like that, but there are certain things that I hear, and this is way off the topic of what I want to talk about today, but I'm actually really, really good with this. I was listening to an interview of somebody that I really, really admired, and it was about they were married to somebody that I really, really look up to at one point. So I know this sounds very tangential, but it'll make sense here in a second. So my wife's an EMT, and she aspires to be a police officer. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but she's real big into like the crime stuff. And this person I really look up to, I consider him like my highest idol, my favorite guitar player. His wife had mentioned, oh yeah, well he was super into like forensic stuff. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I know it's like a whole different tangent, but just the I don't know. I think it's good that people explore this kind of stuff, and I think it's very, very important for people.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, you spoke to it best to say that there's has to be something bigger than us. There's just has to be something. Not all this, I think, fell into by mistake. So,
Yeah, it would definitely be hard to believe that all this just kind of spawned out of nowhere. But I don't have an explanation. I haven't heard quite a compelling explanation one way or the other. So I just, once again, that's why I'm agnostic. Neither believe nor disbelieve. I am far too fucking ignorant of everything to just, claim knowledge one way or the other. So, anyways, today I wanted to review the debate. I have a whole bunch of notes. So if you see me looking down here at my phone, it's because I have so many lines of specific timestamps. And maybe what I'll do is I'll put these in the show notes and then put like my tags and everything. So that way people can look at it and kind of see what I took away from it, at least on a second listen. Um, Shane, why don't you give your takeaways from the debate first? I'll give my brief thoughts, and then we'll go through some clips for a little bit and kind of discuss as we see necessary.
okay. So, original reaction, and I'm gonna kind of, I mean, you can tell by the signage behind me, but I'm definitely a Trump supporter, but my faith ultimately is in Jesus Christ. But so I'm not completely biased here. I can be completely fair on it.
Yeah.
My original reaction to the debate was, man, this was kind of rough. It was, and I thought Trump kind of didn't do what I wanted him to do. But I think I was basing that off the last debate, off Joe Biden, part of it. And then I could see that, she did use some of her tricks to intentionally anger him, and it definitely
Mhm.
worked. And so that was kind of like, man, I just wish he could have composed himself a little bit better. Uh, but ultimately, I think Kamala did a little bit better than I thought she was going to do. She was
Mhm.
definitely well rehearsed. And I do think after a couple of days of processing it, I do think Trump did way better than I originally thought. And I do think it was a 3-on-1. I
Mhm.
do think that they didn't fact check her at all. They fact checked him. I mean, the guy was even questioning his sarcasm at one point. So I'm like,
Yeah.
who are you to question his sarcasm? So
Mhm.
that's just my
Yeah.
quick hot take on it.
Mhm. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, and what's funny is I think I kind of had and probably still have a lot of your same initial reaction where there was like a lot of this campaign for me when it comes to Trump has been kind of upsetting because there's so many pocket aces that he could just pull out and win the day every single time. But just in this debate, he left them open. But I got to give him credit because he did focus a lot on immigration, which I think is a very, very good thing because this is something that like it's a very, very easy topic to win on, and it's vastly unpopular with the current administration. So when he kept bringing it back to there, I think it won him the day. But his answers when it came to the Ukraine war, his rhetoric on it is good, but though when he says, "Oh, oh, I killed the Nord Stream pipeline," it's like, okay, well, that's not the angle you're looking for. But when he said, "I just want people to stop dying," I'm like, this is the Trump that we want. This is the Trump that America deserves. People need to stop dying. We're way in over our heads and all this money. This is ridiculous. This never would have happened under me. We can debate the merits of that, but regardless, his rhetoric on that was perfect. And that's where I think he really knocked it out of the park was the immigration, the rhetoric around war stuff. Um, and like you said, I think Kamala did a little bit better than everybody thought she was going to do. Whether it be teleprompter, whether it be a little something in her ear, I don't know. She definitely brought her grown up pants surprisingly, and Trump had a few good jabs, but I mean, like I said, I feel like there's just so many aces he could have had throughout this campaign and just left them on the table. So that's kind of my initial thoughts. Do you have anything that you want to respond to from what I said, or do you just want to kind of roll into the debate?
Well, yeah, real quick on the
Yeah.
on the earbud thing. Actually, I was like not trying to bite on that at first, but the more and more I see, like the more and more I'm seeing that that might be a real reality. So I don't know. We both don't know for certain. But like I said, I think she spent the last week dormant inside the Omni William Penn Hotel just rehearsing for this thing. So
Yeah.
regardless, like I mean, she was just rehearsed for this. I also heard something like be coming out with an affidavit about her having the questions beforehand, which wouldn't surprise me either. So
No.
that's how late it was.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, okay, well, we're 9 years in this game. This is Trump's third presidential election cycle. We know he's not going to get a fair treatment, and if anybody, he should know he's not going to get a fair treatment. So, and he normally does good on his back foot, so to speak, as in like in debates when people are going after him, he's normally good at kind of throwing back the jabs. I mean, in 2016, he's famous for all the fucking zingers they threw at Hillary Clinton. I think that probably won him the debate. In 2020, the problem is if you attack Joe Biden, you look like you're beating up on an old man because let's face it, he's a senile, incompetent man. He can't even walk. So if you let him hang himself, which is what like the last debate, him getting muted actually worked in his favor because it's like, okay, you could see that Biden can't talk. So Trump wins by default.
Yes.
In this debate, it was pretty neck and neck. So, my buddy old Joe here said, okay, I just got here. Who won the debate? If I had to give you an answer, I would say Trump didn't lose and Kamala didn't necessarily lose. I think the optics for Kamala played out just a little bit better, but I could be pushed either way. I'm not exactly sure. Shane, your thoughts?
Yeah, my original reaction was like draw, push. And
Mhm.
I think Kamala had more to gain out of this.
Yeah.
Than
Oh, yeah.
Trump had to gain out of this. I do think that definitely didn't lose any voters or any support from it, but I
Yeah.
do think after like analyzing after a couple of days and kind of seeing some of how these independent voters are, which I don't know who these people are at this point, but these independent voters, they do seem to be towards him because he was just being more realistic. He still had more of a plan
Yeah.
on it, and he was hitting the points more on the immigrant, like the stuff that people care about. So
Mhm. Nice, nice. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we should kind of move into reviewing the debate. So I got to pull it up here and hopefully they don't like rain terror on my YouTube for this. So, yeah, let me see. The first thing that I had, and like I said, if you have anything in mind that you wanted to go to, let me know and I'll try to get us there. But the first thing that I had was at 5.5 minutes where they brought up January 6th, which just it's like this in Charlottesville are like the two main things that they try to stick in Trump's face. And it's like, are you guys serious? Like, especially Charlottesville, we're talking about 200 assholes down in South Carolina that had tiki torches. You guys seriously are still on about this? Like, what the hell? Nobody cares. The
it's
racists and anti Semites down there that have no influence, no power, and that Trump denounced. Like, they've always tried to play us. Oh, he said stand by or stand back and stand by, and oh, they're totally fine people. He literally said, and I'm pretty sure this is even like some of the fucking left wing fact checkers are like, oh yeah, he actually said, except for the white nationalists who should be condemned totally, and they're
mhm.
still trying to play on that. So it's just shit drives me nuts. So um, let's see, 5.5 minutes. So right about here should be good.
And what we
Can you hear that? All right,
Yep.
cool.
have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly.
So the one thing I wanted to pick out there was not only has Trump denounced Project 2025, sorry, but also I think the one thing that I didn't get in this little clip here was where she said that that January 6th was the worst attack on our government since since the Civil War. Shane, go ahead, dude.
Man, like a day before 9/11, like she says that. It's just so crazy how people And I've heard like people close to me, like in arguments, bring up kind of go with what her thinking is, and it's just that spoon-fed, like brainwashed um, thinking. I just don't understand how you can compare two towers falling, 3,000 people dying, a Pentagon being attacked. I mean, how that can be worse than what happened on January 6th. I just don't. I don't know how you can even compare them at all. I mean,
Mhm.
it was. I don't. I just don't. And those were people that weren't U.S. citizens. If you really get into the nitty gritty of what January 6th was all about, I mean, those were people that believed the election was stolen, and
Yeah.
they wanted to, they were angry and upset. I do think it was a whole like way to kind of trap Trump and his
Mhm.
supporters, and kind of take the narrative from the election being stolen to let's talk about January 6th, and a
Right.
way to further weaponize the political the government against the American people. So
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention some of the people who were, allegedly FBI informants, where, you could definitely make the argument that this was probably a setup. And, I think you and I both probably know people that were hanging out down there on January 6th and said, man, some of this shit don't smell. Yeah, some of this shit don't smell right. And I was just in DC a week or two ago. And I mean, the fences and everything were up super high. The lawn was super clean. You could not get anywhere near that Capitol if you wanted to. But you're telling me on January 6th, where they had foreknowledge that a whole bunch of people who support Trump were going to be there. You're telling me that they wouldn't think, yeah, maybe we should like bump up security a little bit.
they they denied them troops. If them 10,000
Yep,
National Guard troops were there, that never happens. Just never happens.
exactly. Well, and this goes to something that I've kind of ran and raved about. Is that they cracked down, they sent the military in on college students protesting that government over there in the Middle East. They sent the military on those kids. In 2020, when businesses were burning down, they told the police to stand down. In 2020 or 2021 at the Capitol, they let those people go in.
Yep.
This tells you exactly what their plans are. They have greater loyalty to Israel, and they have a greater loyalty to their own in setting up against people like us than they do for actually giving a shit about the American people. It just blows my mind. So, you got anything else to add? Oh, good.
It's definitely mind blowing. And it is you hear it, but it's to create the chaos, to be the
Mhm.
savior. It's just the old playbook, and they do it all the time. So
Yeah, give them fear and sell them security.
yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I had the next bookmark right at about 7.5 minutes. So we'll start here.
Everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So
Okay. Yeah. This is basically talking about the bounce back recovery. So,
Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America.
so she never specifies what a opportunity economy is. And then every single time the Biden administration talks about how many jobs they brought back, it's like, because the fucking country was shut down. That's the only reason you get that credit. Come on, man.
Goldman Sachs has actually one of the heads of Goldman Sachs has actually refuted her statement too, which I think she brings them up further in this statement.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think I remember what you were talking about. I'll see if it's in here, but if not.
Goldman Sachs has said
Yeah, literally right there.
is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit.
So, and I'll throw out the simple platitude that pretty much everybody has, and it's completely right. Why is none of this happening now?
And he should have started that at the beginning. I
Mhm.
think obviously that's his last statement. I think when he was asked about the economy, I mean, I understand him keep going back to the border, but
Mhm.
he should have hit it right from the start. Like, why aren't you doing something about it right now? So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next thing I had, oh, I had the bookmark at 7:20, so a little late. Run spot. Let me see. Let's get it to right about
plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
I don't know why I thought that moment was absolutely hilarious. Her plan is like 4 sentences. It's run, spot, run.
But that's why Trump, I think, does so well with the common American people, because he just kind of speaks the way we all speak, and he's just, that's OG Trump right there, and that's like him at his finest. People like complain about that stuff. I think they're off. I think that's what won him in 2016.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like this was the debate where it seemed like the original Trump, because like his campaign to me has seemed pretty low energy, and then this debate, I'm like, oh, he was a little bit fiery here, and like this is the kind of Trump that I think I wish I could have seen him debate all the other Republican presidential candidates. I mean, I get why he didn't do it, but man, I was just looking forward to those jabs. So like I said, I get it. But regardless, yeah, like you said, this is definitely the Trump that we all kind of remember and enjoyed watching him kind of cook other people in the debates. So yeah, like he said, she really doesn't have a plan. She throws stuff out there, and it's typically like Biden light, but she's trying to kind of separate. Basically the plan with Kamala is that we're going to try to shoe in the establishment, the most establishment candidate as possible, but she's far enough away from the Biden administration, or we're going to try to make it seem that way, so that way we can reelect the same old, essentially.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 days before the debate or a day before the debate, they actually put their policy page out, and it was pretty much copied and pasted from the Biden administration. So I don't know. It's unbelievable that they even tried to separate themselves.
Yeah, it's probably I'm sure they had to have it somewhere, because she always says it, but we're not going back. I know that was in there somewhere. And let me see, 9:55. I had something about tariffs here. Okay.
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever.
So my personal bias is against tariffs, because I have not found a single economist that will agree that tariffs actually improve, actually do anything necessarily for America. So like the one study I read was 94% of the tariffs were paid for by Americans, and only 6% were paid by China. But the plan, if we were to eliminate the income tax and implement a big tariff on China, if we're talking about lesser of two evils, I would be 100% for cranking up tariffs and eliminating the income tax, which I know Trump has floated out. I'm in favor of that. So you good? Any of your thoughts there?
I think he gets into a little bit of explanation on how it could potentially not cost the American people, and that was her. She somehow tried to argue that it would cost the American people, which maybe it does. I've never really delved into it, but she kept the tariffs as well, so I thought that was pretty funny. I think he hammered her pretty hard on that, like harder than he did. But yeah, I do agree. He actually just came out today and talked about not taxing on overtime. So I mean, the dude's. I mean, he's trying to get votes for sure, but I think he's a businessman. He's not. I know they said 6 bankruptcies, but he's still a billionaire. He knows what he's doing. So.
Right, exactly. I mean, you're gonna have some failures, but I actually didn't hear that about not taxing overtime. I mean, if
just said it today. So
nice. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm totally in favor of that. Yeah, he had mentioned about all the money they were paying, and it's been a while since I looked at this, but to his point, actually, they kept the tariffs, and they actually, cranked up some of the tariffs on China. So it's like, okay, well, if you're going to complain about how much this costs the American people, and my understanding and my reading of it is that it does, why did you keep them on? So it's. We'll get to the son of a MAGA hat. Okay, there we go. Yeah, 1105. Okay, so 1105, they talk about trade deficits a little bit, which, okay, here we go.
In a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade.
Sorry, it's doesn't
Let's
get.
be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military. Basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century.
Okay, so I wanted to get onto that part. So yeah, all the chips are made in Taiwan, and this is kind of the main reason why a lot of U.S. foreign policy as of lately is kind of shaped towards China. I talk about this shit ad nauseum when it comes to China, but she said the line there, which is the main talking point from the foreign policy elite, the blob, as they say, is that China and America, or that America is in a competition with China to win the 21st century. And the problem is there's a lot of neoconservatives and awful foreign policy advisors that are in both cabinets, both Trump and the Biden-Harris admins, that want war with China, where it should be like, why don't we just win that economic war? Why don't we make our country as free, capitalist, and prosperous as possible, so that way China respects us more than they do, and they get our stuff. You know, we just have a good trade relationship with them. I mean, that's the ideal situation. That's what our founders wanted, a shining city on the hill that's an example for the rest of the world, because we're so fucking prosperous. And that's really, I do think Trump, at least in his rhetoric, kind of wants that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he definitely had I think a good relationship with Xi, and she brings that up in the debate, how he has good relationship with dictators, as she claims. I mean, they may be in their own way, and and they are in certain ways.
Right.
I don't agree with all their policies and everything they do,
No, of
but
course.
I do think it's important for Trump to be friends with these people. I mean, I do believe the quote "enemies closer." Um, I think that I mean, we don't want these wars. So what better way? I mean, everybody said he was gonna, start that. Their North Korea and him were gonna start a war, and then he's crossing the first one to cross the DMZ. So I mean, I don't know. I think uh, obviously the neocons, the Pompeos, and all that. I think Trump has learned a lot, and I think RFK's touched on that he is going to bring these kind of people in. He had no idea what he was doing when he came in 2016. Like, he was kind of listening to people, like, and I think he got kind of sideswiped on that. So I think if he does win, I think it'll be totally, totally different.
Yeah, well, I sincerely hope so. The PayPal mafia situation is very, very interesting, and some of the people that are backing him, um, I'm not quite as bought as some of my friends who believe that they're gonna like kind of run things, because I think it's a little bit stickier than that. As in, like, there's gonna be a lot more influence than just his donors. I mean, you have, Miriam Adelson, some of the pharma execs, and then you have a lot of the PayPal mafia guys. And JD Vance is kind of like a surrogate for the PayPal mafia guys. And I actually like a lot of stuff that JD Vance says. It's just hard to know, because, like, okay, well, we had 4 years of Trump, and we see that his judgment was bad there, but will his judgment be better? So far, it does actually seem like, okay, well, he's surrounding himself with the right people. Now the question is that going to stick around? We've had 4 years of the Biden administration, and Kamala Harris has made it very clear in the foreign policy aspect. Look, we're not changing course. She may pay platitudes to, the Palestinians, and, we want all these wars to end, and this and that. And she talks about it at a certain point. So we'll get there. The saving money on Afghanistan, it just, when you look at the totality of things, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I think Trump's rhetoric on all this stuff has been good. So the next thing that I had was, this was, as I told you, probably one of my favorite moments of Trump recently. So let's go to right about 12:22 here.
Well, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore.
And I want to expand upon this point real quick too. Trump actually had a good position, and it's not significantly different than what the current position is, but he said basically, I wouldn't want to fund the defense of Taiwan and the situation that China goes after Taiwan. Now, that's a completely separate podcast to talk about the intricacies of those two countries and all that, but I think that's the right position. And he's also correct that we get our chips from Taiwan, which is, once again, the main reason why the U.S. wants to send all these arms and aid to Taiwan. So,
because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But
one of my favorite clips, and I hardly saw anybody talk about it. I'm like, how do you miss that? I was going to send her a MAGA hat.
I mean, and she has. I mean, now she's flipped on the border. She did the no tax on tips. I mean, she's copying a lot of this stuff right now, and it's not sincere, obviously, at all.
Exactly.
It's just a political move.
Yeah, well, once again, she realizes that the border stuff is incredibly unpopular, especially, as they're going to talk about the Haitians, which I don't know the truth of that, but it's very funny. And Trump sounded a little unhinged talking about it, especially if people like don't know what's going on. But like to the people that are like inside of it, I put out a tweet, and I really believe this, that if, let's say, an area close to you and I, Brackenridge or something like that, right? If they were to bus in 20,000 Haitians by bus, I would tell every single person in that town, you go there strapped and you tell them you can take them back or we will take them back and you won't be driving. Those are your two options. You choose. But either way, they're going back. So, yeah.
Are we getting into that now? Because I do have some comments on that.
Okay, yeah. Let me see the next. Where was I at? 21. Okay, actually, yeah. You know what? So the next timestamp I had was 1305. So we'll go there, and I think it was about the number of immigrants. So, yeah, we could riff on that.
She's done to our country. And when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say. And I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that.
So, like I said a little bit earlier, I think he's smart for bringing this back to immigration, but you said you had some comments on that, so go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I don't think we understand the true dynamics of what the damage they've done to our country. I don't think it's been actually seen yet. I think it's slowly treading. You're starting to witness these Venezuelan gangs and all their impacts. I mean, we've seen the terrorist, I'm not terrorist, the migrants crime, as he referred to it now, where they've raped people and killed people. I think what he did miss on the Haitian thing was that they are causing havoc in that town. I mean, you move 20,000 of any descent, they're going to cause havoc. But these people don't know how to
Right.
drive, so they're causing a lot of accidents. They're they're just, and I guess, and I've looked it up. Some people in Haiti practice voodoo, and they do actually sincerely eat cats. So, and these people are desperate as well. They will eat cats out of desperation. So it's not like and people want to make it so far fetched, like that's like just so unbelievable that would ever happen. I they're I've seen a lot of videos from people from Springfield, different interviews, and it seems like it's a potential reality. I can't
Okay.
guarantee it is, but I would say that I don't think he said it for nothing. And it's one of those things like where, oh, it's fake today, and then like a month later, it's gonna come back to bite him. I think. I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know either, but like you said, if you dump a whole bunch of people from a different country and a different culture into any area, Jesus Christ, you could even take someone from here in Pittsburgh and put them down in, the furthest southern reaches of Florida or something like that. They're not going to know exactly, or, to make a more stark example, let's say New York City and you put them in, country Florida or something like that. They're going to stick out like a sore thumb just because it's not their culture. And it's not like, I'm not saying these people are inherently bad, but I'm sorry, you don't belong here. Your country is what it is. It's a horrible situation. It's not my problem. It's not our problem. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it, like, I do think there, like, when he talks about the 21 million, that's the other part. I mean, there
Yeah.
is a lot of gotaways, and there are people that came here that I guarantee are they're the sleeper cells that are waiting on their time. So
Mhm.
I think that's why part of the reason he's hammering it. I know he still has intel. I know he says he declines all that intel, but I'm sure he still
Mhm.
gets it in some form or fashion. I do think I don't know. These next 50 days are going to be pretty wild. I'm not saying I promising or guaranteeing or predicting anything, but I wouldn't be surprised at the same time if some kind of terrorist or some kind of event happens and the next major event happens before the election.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, with everything that's happened recently, it's hard to even predict anything. So I cease making predictions because it's like, okay, I'm far too dumb to make any accurate predictions.
Not
So
predicting, just say I wouldn't be surprised.
oh yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. So I want to skip a few of these things because they're not all that important. So this was the first moment, 16 and a half minutes in, where I really noticed, and this is something that I'm guessing probably just about everybody who was watching noticed. Right about here.
Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam.
So that part right there, and I'm sure you know where I'm going, is kind of where they stuck their foot down like they never did with Kamala Harris. And as I said earlier, it's Trump. He's not going to get a fair shake in these debates, but they never did that to Kamala, not once, but they're very, very firm. And I consider myself pro-life. I actually agree with Trump's position on abortion. I think, the justices that he put in that overturned Roe v. Wade, I think that was a good thing because at this time, abortion is such a wedge issue. You're not going to get the massive amounts of people to agree on it one way or the other. Kicking it back to the states is the right thing to do, but I think his position is correct, where I would say life begins at conception, but exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother would be my position, which I believe is Trump's position as well.
Yeah, and I do know that governor that he was talking about literally did say, like, that baby's on the table, and I've watched where I know at least at 34 weeks, they've called and said they'll give them an abortion, these clinics. So I mean, there's definitely late term abortions.
Yeah.
I'm not promising or guaranteeing that they happen after, but I've heard things like that in like places like New York, California. So I don't know.
Yeah. Gustav, she's wrong about that also. Okay. Virginia. Okay. Yeah. And that was where they literally said, he said that the governor said that the baby is born and then we decide what to do with it, which, if you ask me, that's pure fucking evil.
There's video of that. That is real. And that's what he's talking about. And some of this stuff is Streisand effect, the power of the internet. People go and look this stuff up. People go look up Haiti. People go look up gun confiscation. People go look up stuff like this, the abortion stuff. So I think Trump kind of is like, people are like, oh, why would you say something like that? Because he's more intelligent than I think we think sometimes. And it might sound dumb at first, but it comes back to bite them. So.
Okay, so 2420. Let's move ahead a little bit to there. I agree, though. Yeah, he knows how to play to the audience, and he knows how to throw zingers. The problem is, if you touch Trump's ego, he can't walk away from it. He has to fight back. So, and we're going to get to that here in a second. Okay, so right about here, I think this is Kamala's answer about the border, about what. Okay,
yeah. To act. And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations.
So this was, you know what, I could probably just rewind a little bit, where they asked about if she would do something.
This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking.
The other thing about this is that they never stopped Kamala when she was talking. There's one thing I want to get to right at the end of this that we'll comment on after.
And guns. drugs in human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing.
So go ahead. And I'll give you my thoughts afterwards.
She sound ridiculous, so ridiculous. Why didn't she fix the problem? Like they can fix the problem, and this is where I think Trump dropped the ball because they created the problem. The border was not a problem. I mean, it could have been like it wasn't perfect either, but like they stopped the border construction. They stopped the I'm forgetting the term of what it was.
Was it a catch and release?
Yeah, the catch and release. They and there was another thing they did with COVID where they stopped letting people in. Some kind of it wasn't like a moratorium or something like that. But I mean, they cut all those on day one, like literally on day one. And I don't know why he didn't bring that up, but the border bill, he should have slammed her on it too, because the border bill was just to allow 5,000 migrants a day, like that's normal or something like that. So.
Yeah, and you know, maybe there was some truth to him crushing it so he could run on it, maybe. But I think probably the larger factor there is probably the remain in Mexico. Okay, thanks, B. Is that what he was talking about?
Yeah, remain in Mexico. That was that was a big one too. There was one. It kept coming up as a vote. They were gonna extend it. Or, I can't remember the name of it. It was probably last year at some point. Anyways, I think he could have hammered her way harder on this, but they said they fixed it on their own. The numbers went way down. So like, why didn't they fix it then? Like, way back when. So
right, and I think probably the reason why Trump would have called and told them not to vote on this, if that is the situation, it's probably because there was so much other bullshit in there that just was not favorable to the ends that they were looking for. Could it be political? Sure. But, I think, like I said, it's probably more about, hey, this just has so much other stuff that's just not tenable for what we want in here. Okay, where was I at the border answer? Okay, 2550. So this was where I think Trump took the bait.
Instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting.
This right here, this was probably something they rehearsed her on because they knew he would take this bait. I think you know where we're going.
Oh, yeah, they did. He did.
Thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs,
This was specifically so he wouldn't say anything about immigration. Because he could have nailed her to the wall to that, like you said. But instead, if you insult his rallies, he has to tell you that they were the best rallies. Nobody leaves. That there's so many people. They're way better than her rallies. That's just what Trump has to do.
I think it was funny that he talked about them busing him in, because I just seen something out there today where a guy was posting a video of how many people were at the Kamala rally, but there was all these buses, and he ended up deleting it later. Because he didn't realize that he had the buses in the clip. Yeah, he definitely dropped the ball. Like, obviously they knew what they were doing. She definitely had that rehearsed, because she said, I'm going to do something unusual here. Like, that's pre-planned. When the people leaving thing, I was at Butler when the shooting happened. Nobody left when people were shooting. So people don't leave those things. And the whole lie about him not talking about us, he talks a lot about himself. I'm not gonna lie, he does. I think he says I way too much. But he definitely talks about the American people. And but it was intentional just to get him off his game. So, and it worked. It definitely did.
Right. And the moment that we were talking about a little bit earlier. So obviously throughout there, he just, people don't leave my rallies. They love it. Nobody goes to her rallies. They're all getting paid to go there, which probably true. Okay. So, and
want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Oh my God. Even, I mean, whether it's true or not, it is funny to hear somebody say that, and especially just in the Trump. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
I think it's funny how they like had the fact check ready for that. Oh, we call the city manager like, and I heard other pundits talking about the city. Who's the city manager though to like verify that? Like, who's to say he's not paid off or whatever it be? You know,
And how's he gonna know? I mean, you're telling me that somebody can't just go, oh yeah, shit, there goes Spike. Spike's fucking ribs now, bro.
I mean, I don't know. Whatever. It's just unbelievable. This is where we're at in America, though. I mean, that's kind of like just crazy.
Yeah. All right. So the next one I wanted to get to, and I got quite a bit to say about this. 2850, where she mentions who she's endorsed by.
To that, Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to...
That's not quite the brag you think it is. We don't want their endorsement.
Like, that is like the epitome of what you don't want. And I think it's awesome that Trump has separated himself from those people. Not that he was ever one of those people, I don't think, but people could probably easily more grouped him in beforehand. But he's obviously, I mean, I think he's ended the Cheneys. He's ended, and the Bushes were kind of out of it, but the Romneys, all those big neocons are kind of out of the game. So.
Yeah, and then obviously the Clintons as well, who are essentially nobodies now at this point. I mean, they're still like somebody's behind the scenes, but like I don't know of anybody that looks at the Clintons as favorable.
Right. Yeah. I don't. Have you listened to Brett Weinstein or I think his brother Eric Weinstein at all? I heard a really interesting podcast with him, and basically like Trump's the first person to win that wasn't part of the establishment, never was held a political office, and never was in the military. So he really is, I think, an outsider. I mean, I can see how people can group him in to be part of the whole thing, but the tape's still rolling on him, obviously. But he was never supposed to win. This is why I think you see everything that happens against him. So that's actually why I truly support him.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get to the presidential immunity thing because this is a pretty good point that I think we could dig quite a bit on. What's it? 3552.
Weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States...
She always has to add that to filibuster. It always, the context and unburdened by what has been.
Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
Okay, so the reason why I want to stop here is because if what the hell? Sorry, my screen just flashed. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because if Donald Trump becomes president again, okay, they all have presidential immunity, but then that means they do too, which means that they can't get persecuted for anything. She's not worried about him going around persecuting. She's looking at herself going like, yeah, I may be next. I don't think Trump's going to do anything like that, but it's never about like, oh, well, we need to upstand for justice. No, you guys can't come after us. We're the most powerful fucking people in the world. You can't dare fucking do anything to us. She doesn't give a shit about the actual fucking justice. Jesus Christ.
No, not at all. She never has. Like, even as a prosecutor, she was awful record.
Yeah, and like I said, and if she was in California today as a prosecutor, she would probably be a lot more hardline because it. Dave Smith is right when he says this, that like it's ridiculous that people paint her as a communist because she doesn't have, she never did anything that would benefit people like you and I. She's behind the fucking big banks, APAC, all the different fucking lobbies. She's about whatever makes her fucking fat ass cash. She's about more political power for us. She's not for the little people, for the, for the average working person. It's the same deal with Biden too, right? They epitomize everything that is wrong with our government. They do to a T. That's why they're not fucking communists. No, they're fucking corporatists. You call them fascists. I don't really know. But regardless, they're about their bottom fucking line. They don't give a shit about the people.
Right. No, not at all.
Yeah. And once again, when did they do anything that would ever fucking hinge on the profits of big business, big banks, or the military? Never. Because guess what? That's where they get their money from.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, 36.4. Oh, okay. So I know you'll have a lot to say on this too. Okay.
She weaponized.
Trump was 100% right here, and I'm really glad he made this point. And this was another point that I didn't see a lot of people bring up that I thought warranted a lot more conversation.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
This is the right takeaway. And this is why when I saw videos of people, basically our friends and family at the rally in Butler, when they turned to the press and said, you're the reason for this, they were 100% right. And Trump is 100% right here because he's absolutely right. If you fucking install hysteria into people and tell them that this motherfucker is going to bring about World War III and he's a threat to democracy and then what's somebody going to do? Somebody who's schizophrenic and hears that shit, they're like, well, okay, what's the conclusion?
I'm going to save the country. I'm going to take out the modern day Hitler. I have the capability of doing so. And that is legitimately how they talk about this guy. I mean, they bang the drum every day about how terrible this is. And I do believe Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. Like, I guess I want to bring it up real quickly. I didn't always support Donald Trump. I actually voted against him in 2016. Not proud of that, but I was very naive. I was very gullible. Very fell for a lot of the mainstream. I was also young. I mean, not as young as you, but I was just, and I didn't pay attention that much either. I really started paying attention when my rights started getting taken in 2020. I was, man, I was deceived like crazy. So like I kind of understand on how people are deceived, and that's kind of why I'm so outspoken, because I want to try to defeat that deception. So
gotcha. Yeah, well, like I said, he was absolutely right here. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to something else that I really wanted to cover, and this is where Kamala had built upon the lies. And this is another pocket ace, and this is because Trump is a very, very big Zionist. He loves Israel. Big fault on his part, but he's been going on this tour of calling all these people who are like diehard Zionists as well, like big people who support Israel fervently, Palestinians. It is kind of funny, but Kamala Harris repeated this lie.
You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped.
So there was absolutely no evidence of rapes done on that day. And lest we not forget that Israel confirmed this. They have what's called the Hannibal Directive, which allows them to kill their own civilians instead of being taken hostage. This was used on October 7th by the Israeli Defense Force. Israel had killed some of their own civilians on October 7th. We don't know how many, but the original story was 1,400. It was all Hamas that killed all these people. I'm not saying Hamas is good, but I'm just saying there was no evidence of rape. Israel killed their own citizens. They completely fabricated the 40 beheaded babies and all this other stuff. And then the Biden administration has completely greenlit the absolute slaughter of Palestinians and sending billions of our tax dollars overseas to continue what is essentially amounts to a fucking genocide at this point. And this is a pocket ace that Trump could have played. You could even say I fervently morally support Israel, but it's just not on our dime. That is the perfect America First angle. If you want to be a Zionist and be America First, you can be. I don't have any issues with that. I have a problem when you say we have to send money over there to do that. If they want to do that on their own dime, I disagree with their treatment of the Palestinians, but hey, not my business, not my country. I'm worried about here. So I know that's a lot. Do you have anything to add there?
Well, I mean, I have heard, you know, different things. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that all these terrorists were just allowed in one day. Like they, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously, I mean, terrible things I think did happen that day.
They did,
I
yeah.
don't know all the real fact, and obviously terrible things continue to happen over there. I just think s- I I think we're living in kind of some biblical times. I do think I don't think this war is anywhere near over. I do think it's going to escalate before it ends. So we'll see. Brought up somebody interesting earlier, the Miriam, and that's
Oh,
part of
Miriam Adelson. Yeah.
probably part of. She's very big pro Israel.
Mhm.
So I could see on why she's also a big donor of Trump. So this is probably plays into that as well. So
Yeah, unfortunately. And like I said, I would like to see, I was a little hopeful. It was back in 2021, not when Benjamin Netanyahu had congratulated Biden. There were reportedly calls where Trump said, fuck Netanyahu. And I was like, I like this attitude. Because in my opinion, I think one of the greatest struggles right now in all dissident, politics of, specifically more right-leaning people is to separate the Israel firsters from the America First movement, because it's very, very intertwined together. We're to make financial support, and let me be clear about that, financial support for Israel so untenable that you cannot get elected without saying, I support Israel morally, but I do not support them financially. They can do whatever they want with their own money, but we're not funding this anymore because we've sent them more money than any other country on the face of the planet since 1948. So,
yeah, I think I've seen you talk about it. I
mm,
believe that Israel has a large influence on our politics here. I
right.
mean, the thought, all that, it's huge. I mean,
Mm,
I think there's a lot of politicians that are compromised by Israel.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a problem. So I obviously, and this could be one of the biggest red flags for you with Trump because, like you said, he is definitely pro-Israel.
Mm,
I don't think it's necessarily from a religious aspect either.
mm.
For me, that's why I would be pro-Israel. But I don't have to be pro the government and what they're doing. I can be
Exactly.
pro the people, just like any situation. So
Right, exactly. And that's generally the way I am. I don't support the Ukrainian government. I support the Ukrainian people. I support the Russian people, the Chinese, all the people across the world. I'm against their tyrannical governments. I
yeah,
hope the best for them. I don't want to
right.
financially support a single one of you motherfuckers.
Yeah, it's crazy that we do. Like we're the world police, and I think you know, and I know,
Mm,
it's not being policing. It's or for safety or liberty. It's
yeah.
to further our power or further some kind of
Mhm.
agenda. So
Yeah, it's all about profiteering essentially. So I'll jump to 110 where they brought up the Afghanistan withdrawal and how much money we're saving because we're not in Afghanistan, but we'll talk about why that's just ridiculous. So I'm skipping around here because I don't want to keep Shane here all night as much as I am enjoying this.
it's not a big deal. I'll stay on. I'm having fun too. So
Okay, cool, man, cool. Well, we'll jump to right here.
Withdrawal played out.
So he asked her about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and her answer's so funny. And like just on its face, if you don't think about the full context of the situation, it sounds like she won the question. But then you think about it, and you're like, hold on a minute.
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of
So I think you know where I'm going with this. So if you know where I'm going, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you to go. But I love that they split screen it and watching Trump's reactions. It's just so funny.
We were spending $300 million a day in Afghanistan, which I'm sure probably more than that, if I'm being honest. Leaving Afghanistan was.
I heard that number. That's crazy.
Mm.
I mean, that's just crazy. That's insane. But go ahead. Sorry.
It was absolutely the right decision to get out of Afghanistan. We can debate all day about how awful it was that they, how it was done. I agree, but it was the right thing to do regardless. Trump organized, and she actually knocked him for this about negotiating with terrorists, which is like a fucking George Bush fucking talking point back in the day. Like, I understand you got the Dick Cheney endorsement. That doesn't mean you have to fucking steal his talking points. We have to live in the world with these people, right? And we've been we slaughtered 1 million Iraqis, throughout the decades now at this point. I think it's fair that we kind of give them their fair shake and say, like, hey, we're going to leave you guys alone. How can we make this possible where, like, the least people die? Trump had it set for, I think it was May of 2021. Biden wanted it to be his deal. He, because Biden's as old and retarded and senile as he is, he still cares about his image and he cares about power. So therefore, I think that he probably thought, hey, I'll go down in the history books as the president who ended the Afghanistan war if I withdraw on my date instead of Trump's date. Okay, well, then you get remembered as the dude who completely fucked it up rather than just taking credit for, hey, it ended, which is the right thing. But we saved $300 million a day, but then we sent $250 billion over to Ukraine. So did we really save?
Like 4 or 5, 6 months later? Yeah, we didn't. I mean, we're not saving obviously any. I mean, because we just keep sending money and not only to them but to Israel and even Taiwan. So I mean, the warmongering continues. I obviously Trump had a great plan. He brings up that in 18 months, no soldiers were killed. In his last 18 months, he knew what he was doing. I think he had a way better plan than them. And they I mean, dude, they did more than botch it. I mean, they left all that equipment there, which some people try to downplay the value of that equipment. But no way should we leave all that equipment to what she calls terrorists, which they're not good people. The Taliban, not the Afghanis. I mean, we left American citizens there. We got soldiers killed there, and we also a crucial point. I know, like China, but like I mean, Bagram Airport. I mean, that's not something we should have gave up at all. So.
Yeah, well, like I said, my perspective on that would be, why don't we just maintain a good relationship with them? Hey, I know we kind of fucked you guys up over the last 20 years, but look, we're going to lift all sanctions off you guys. Let's start trading. Let's figure out something to kind of make this beneficial for all of us. Whatever we could do to kind of make the situation better, because we sincerely wronged you guys. And that's, once again, our founders wanted us to be a shining city on a hill, not a global empire, which is essentially what we've become. And like you said, policing all over the world for profiteering rather than for, any kind of democracy, as they say. When they say democracy, that usually means like our global hegemony. That's normally what they means when we're sticking up for democracy in Ukraine, Taiwan, wherever.
Yeah, I think their democracy is their institutions, basically, and how they serve. I think he hit it on the head too about it showed our weakness in our leadership as well, and how ridiculously incompetent we are. I think we're worse than incompetent. I think a lot of it's intentional. Yeah, I think on a world stage it showed it. So I think stuff like Russia and Ukraine happens because of that, and I think that's where he kind of goes with that in a little bit.
Of today, there is not one member of the United
Fast forward this
States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban.
There it is. Once again, you can call them terrorists all day long, but we still You know, we still have to live with these people, and we're in their country. We are the foreign invaders in a lot of those countries, you know, Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, all these countries we have troops in. And now, fuck, we've even had, you know, troops off of, you know, mainland China, you know, training Taiwanese troops up in Michigan and sending, you know, troops over to Taiwan to train soldiers. Kamala Harris authored the deal to give arms guarantees to the Philippines, where basically there's a dispute reefs between China and the Philippines, where if China were to fuck around in those reefs, essentially, we would go to war with China over some reefs in the Philippines. Like, why do we need to do that? Let the fucking Philippines worry about that. Like, that's not our fucking problem. What does that have to do with American, you know, even like American hegemony or interests? It's because guess what? We got to step all over everybody's toes. You can't have China and Russia having any sphere of influence. But I mean, why is that a problem if we just don't fight a war with them? Hey, China buys billions of dollars of our food. And you know what? If they really want to get smart with us, if we pull our food from them, they got some real problems. That's how fucking fickle the China, you know, situation is. We need them so that way we can have this stuff. And like, you know, you and I can talk a couple miles away from each other, but like they got to eat. If we pull the food, a sizable portion of their population goes hungry. And you know, the reason why there ain't no civil war here in America is because we ain't hungry and we're bored. We can afford to be bored. When you can't afford to be bored and you're hungry, shit goes bad.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So.
The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storage.
Yeah, so I don't really give a shit about any of that stuff. He negotiated. Who cares?
Yeah.
So the next thing that I had was about the race stuff, which just let's see where it is. Yeah. Right about there should be good.
When she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't.
So see, like this was clearly a pointed question where you're trying to get him you're trying to paint him as the fucking racist. And then it's so stupid. So stupid.
And I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words.
I do kind of love that remark.
I mean, and I mean, they want to make it out and twist it and finagle it, but reality is she did like kind of identify as an Indian, then she identified as a black woman. She didn't say I'm a black Indian. Like she kind of went both like different ways at different times in her political career.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like nobody really cares about this. Like, why? I don't even think like I don't even think like most left-leaning people, if I'm being completely honest with you, I really don't think they care about this all that much. Like this was just such virtue signaling fucking bullshit to give Kamala Harris a fucking pat on the back.
Yeah, he just brought the reason he brought it up at that when he was down in Georgia with those people getting interviewed, is just to show how she's just not a sincere person, you know.
Right.
So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black that she put out, and I'll say
I don't know if that meant what it was supposed to mean, but like listen to that now a third time. He said she put out.
I don't know if she put out necessarily, but that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, just listen to that again. I didn't catch that either time, but listen to it again. I wonder if that's what he actually meant.
I want to hear the whole thing. That's funny.
Yeah.
say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
So she gets into the whole lawsuit thing where allegedly some kids murdered somebody. If you want to touch on that, we can.
I mean, it's actually the New York Post came out and debunked it. I've heard it before.
Oh, you're good.
When they were painting, painting him as a racist big time in 2020. People know and understand he's not. Al Sharpton will call him a racist, but he gave him an NAACP award back in the 90s. I mean, I think it's obviously proven that he's not a racist. It's just that this is what they do to anybody that's goes against the grain. They label sexist, a racist, a xenophobe, or whatever it be. It's just typical jargon that they love to throw at people to make you not support them.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever you hear that word racist, it typically means, hey, you disagree with me, so therefore I want to ruin your life by throwing everything I got at you. So the Obamacare stuff. Let me get to
He wasn't strong on that at all.
What's that?
He wasn't very strong on that.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny because he was like, hey, she's black, that's up to her. But yeah,
I'm talking about the Obamacare part.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll get there. Sorry. 2045. So I think they were talking about
something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan? And can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away.
It's kind of where Trump does Trump. I did the best I could. I felt like I had an obligation and I did the best. But he is right, though, because Obamacare was a mess. But if I remember correctly, to his credit, he did repeal the individual mandate, right?
Yes. Yeah. He did.
Yeah. I mean, what else would you call... It was amazing. God.
She's a radical on it. She wants it completely government healthcare. I mean, she wants it to be like Canada. I mean, where you'll be waiting, and the healthcare system is all corrupt, and we know that. And obviously, I think if we just take better care of ourselves, you don't really need to depend on the healthcare system except for emergencies. But there are instances with all the poison that we consume and breathe and all that, where you need help from medical professionals. And basically, you'll be waiting for 2 years for some of that stuff. And if they don't like you could be waiting even longer. So
yeah. Yeah, well, the government's so infested in our healthcare, and it's really like, well, why don't we just boot them back out? if we can put them in, we can put them out.
And he wants to privatize it. He just didn't have his plan or whatever. That's why I thought he was not necessarily weak on, but I thought he should be better prepared for that.
Yeah, well, so I had it marked because it did make me laugh how he worded it. So
I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration.
Like the usual Trump, lots of good people. I have very good people.
You read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. If I had a choice to make, do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better healthcare than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not.
This is, and I think this is where you're saying that he kind of fumbled. I just thought it was hilarious the way that he kind of came out. He was like a little kid who got caught doing something he shouldn't have did.
Yeah.
Have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan.
Right there.
Yeah.
Like, come on, you don't have a plan? He skated by
yeah.
pretty good.
I have concepts. So,
Yeah, concepts of a plan. That's just saying, no, I don't have a plan. But, he played it off.
I'm not president right now, but if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Which he could be. They're obviously holding stuff back. He doesn't want to let everything out of the bag, so Colin can copy it and he can send it to MAGA. So.
Okay, so I brought up Dave Smith, but he brings up this debate in 2016 where Trump was saying something, and Rand Paul said, "Oh, did you know what you're talking about has nothing to do with what you're going on about?" And instead of saying, "Oh, no, I didn't know that," or saying, "Oh, yes, it does," instead he said, "Rand, where are you in the polls?" Just completely shifted rather than talking about the material. That's kind of what that reminded me of. It's just, it had nothing to do with actual healthcare. I have a concept of a plan, not just winging it. But sometimes it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's not just for whatever reason, it's not a real big topic for voters right now. I guess because we just all think we're just kind of screwed with it. So it just is what it is.
Right. Yeah, I think everybody's kind of accepted that, healthcare is a fucking disaster and there's nothing you really do about it. So I must have this marked down wrong.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business.
I must have marked that down wrong, but she's
about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both guns.
She said something about the late great John McCain, and I tweeted out that no, Trump was right to make fun of John McCain.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Well, one of the people who's responsible for all the terror wars and supporting all that stuff and making the quality of the average American's lives so much worse through these wars. People like that who haven't turned around. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. You deserve to be made fun of.
When it all comes out, he will be one of the biggest traitors to the United States of America. He completely, like you said, sold us out. So
yeah,
I think it's funny that she says she's a gun owner because rules for me, not for thee.
Right.
And I'm sure she fires her gun all the time. But yeah, it's just so funny, these people, how they try to switch it around.
Well, once again, it's all political because you saw, I'm sure, the Tim Walz camo hats or the Kamala Walz hats, Harris Walz, whatever, camo hats, because they're trying to get rural Americans. And I'm sorry, I don't see any dudes open Miller Lite watching fucking NASCAR that are saying, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. If you know one, let me know. Anybody listening out there, if you know anybody like that, find them and let me know, because I don't know any.
Yeah, me either.
So I think the last thing I had was in their closing statements, 128.25. Right about here.
Detroit or South Carolina or any other place, what they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid.
Okay, so yeah, Trump was going after his loyalty here. He was mentioning about all the people that paid him. And this is something I think a lot of right-wingers get wrong when they talk about Biden is, oh, he's bought out by China. He's bought out by the fucking highest bidder. If you look at him, Biden is a whore for anybody who will fucking give him a buck. AIPAC, he is AIPAC's largest recipient. Nobody has received more money from the Israeli lobby than Joe Biden. He's received tons of money from China. He's received tons of money from Ukraine. Trump brought up he received money from Russia. He's the credit card company's guy. When they need bailed out, who'd they call? Senator Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden. Whenever any big bank, company, military contractor, you fucking name it, the people who fucking who steal our hard-earned dollars and all the bailouts went to, that's who Joe Biden's loyal to. He ain't loyal to you and me.
No.
He's loyal to the almighty dollar. That's it. And whatever maintains the Biden crime family and the Biden empire.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
No, totally. And yeah, you hit it on the head. Only thing I didn't know about, which was cool to learn, is the Israel thing. I did not know that about him, but it makes perfect sense, obviously.
Yeah, the top 3 recipients, Joe Biden's number 1, Hillary Clinton's number 2, and then number 3 is Bob Menendez. Yeah. Think about that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so
Corruption at its finest.
oh yeah, exactly. So I think that's pretty much all I had. Is there anything in the debate that you could recall that you want to comment on as we wrap up here?
I mean, just the last. I think I touched on it earlier. The last statement, where Trump said, why didn't you just do this the whole time? I mean, I think he slammed her. The only thing I said, I wish he would have done it more earlier in the debate, because some people might not have stuck through the whole debate. But I mean, yeah, he nailed her on the head on that, and yeah, she really doesn't have any comeback for that. I don't think, other than she's not president, but I mean, she's big influence. That was my biggest takeaway, and I don't think we really missed anything. I think we hit a lot of it. I mean, almost all of it.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, I enjoyed having you on for this again. Like I said, it's been 300 episodes, probably 2 years or so, man. I know I've seen you once or twice in person since then, which was a really, really good time when I think it was at a bar somewhere down in Oakmont. But yeah, man, we should definitely do it again sometime. Okay.
It was at the Hula Bar for a fundraiser, actually. It came out.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, I feel like I was on one other episode. We were talking about something, I think, with like midterms or something like that. It was with it wasn't just me, with somebody else. But I'd have to, I have to figure that out. But I did want to ask you before we got off,
Yeah.
since what did you think about the RFK thing? Were you think it's a big deal, like with the him endorsing Trump and kind of teaming up with them? Do you think that's
It's interesting. I really liked RFK, and especially because at first he seemed really promising, specifically when it came to foreign policy surrounding China. He had said early on that, like, we're in an economic competition with China and we should win that competition. And that's like music to my ears. Hey, we don't want to go to war with them, because every single year, I think it's every single 4 years since 2011, when Obama and Hillary Clinton were in the White House, they pivoted from terror wars to they started what was called the pivot to Asia, which is basically focusing on, instead of terror wars, we go to great power competition between Russia, China, and Iran. China being number 1, Russia being number 2, and then Iran being number 3. RFK was the best candidate on that at one point. Somebody called him an anti-Semite once, and then he could not love Israel enough. But putting that aside, to have somebody that brings up the health of the nation and talks about that kind of stuff the way that he does, I disagree with him on some stuff in this respect, but to have somebody at least kind of saying, hey, this is a problem, because I talk about a lot of this stuff too, right? I mean, 88% of the American population is considered metabolically unhealthy. You go to anywhere and you see people generally ain't in good shape. All the vaccine stuff, he was right to bring up a lot of these issues. Do I think that's going to matter in the grand scheme of things? If I'm being honest, I don't think the endorsement's going to be as great as people think. And it's not because RFK isn't a major player. I think it's because people have a hard time, and I even have a hard time with this, separating like online presence in dissident media to actual electoral outcomes. Like, this seems so like they would be so intertwined. Like, they would be, if somebody has a good social media presence, then they would do great electorally. There was somebody, Valentina Lopez, I think she was running for Congress, something like that. She had a great TikTok and all this other stuff. Awesome campaign ads. Absolutely loved them. she got like 6% of their vote. Like, she got nothing. She got, and great social media, got next to no votes. That being said, RFK, once again, bringing about the right issues, and then being a Kennedy, moving from, being the Democrat, right? The Kennedys are the Democrats, to go over to the Republican side. It's interesting. And I like that he's there, and I hope that he's in charge of like the Department of Agriculture or something like that. Keep him away from like guns and keep him away from like the climate stuff. But when it comes to people's health, his speech, he's such a great speaker, despite his like voice thing, such a great speaker. And like, it's so easy to just forget about how he can't really talk that well, because the content of his speech is always really moving, if I'm being honest. So, do I think it's going to make a huge impact? Not really, but I dig the situation, and I can understand the pragmatic angle of saying, hey, our path to victory is very, very difficult. So I'm going to compromise in this respect. And it's not like a moral compromise, but I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to take a back seat in this position, and I'm going to get leverage this way.
So my quick take on it, obviously, Trump, I think for whatever reason, I think he was kind of boxed in to kind of, make this vaccine, because they were never going to let the pandemic go away without one. Like, that
Mm,
had to happen. And it pushed a lot of people away from Trump. Even in some senses, it definitely angered me, but like, not enough to not support him
mm,
because of the obviously the opposition.
right.
But the people that are anti-vaccine are very politically active,
Mm,
like incredibly politically active. Like, and those people would vote for RFK, and they were going to vote for RFK. So I think people kind of miss that faction of people,
mhm.
that might come out and vote for Trump now because RFK has put his support behind him. I don't think it's like a make or break the election or anything like that. I think I think Trump should win anyways. If we'll see.
If we're assuming free and fair elections.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, dude, I honestly, today on September 12th, I don't even know if we'll have an election on November 5th. I have no idea. So we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to, since you're kind of I mean, I would say you're a libertarian, and I think RFK obviously resonates with libertarian mindset. I just wanted to see what you thought about it. So that's why I
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy Connor and I did a pretty long podcast where we kind of really had a lot of praise for him. But like I said, just since the October 7th stuff, and then he got called an anti-Semite once, and he just completely folded. Like, oh, I don't like that. But the issues that he brought up were good. And then his speech was, as a lot of people have said, probably one of the best speeches of anyone's political career, when he gave the Trump endorsement, and when they, walked out on stage, had the fireworks and everything. The optics were pretty cool. So yeah, I definitely got to give it to him on that. And I'm glad that he'll have a home somewhere where hopefully he'll have some kind of influence, and hopefully it's for the better.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, hopefully you can check Trump on some of that stuff. So
Yeah, and he was better on a lot of like the anti-war stuff than Trump too. So I think having him in Trump's cabinet is a net positive. My dream situation right now would be Trump saying, all right, Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, and RFK are the only three I'm listening to, specifically Thomas Massey, because he in my opinion, he's our modern day American hero. Um
yeah, he's calling out the Israel compromise government and stuff like that.
Oh
So
yeah, I just he's America's congressman. I have so much love for that man. He's one of the Ron Paul guys. Back in 2010-ish, it was Rand Paul, Justin Amash, Thomas Massey all got elected, and they really carried the torch for Ron Paul. And I really think it was kind of Ron Paul's 2008, 2012 campaigns that really laid a lot of the seeds for Trump to come back with a populist anti-war message like he did in 2016. And looking back at what I know now, had I known more in 2016, I probably would have supported Trump in 2016 rather than supporting Gary Johnson. Because looking back at how Trump spoke to the issues, he was right about a lot of the stuff that he campaigned on in 2016. Granted, he flipped on a lot from 2016 as soon as he got elected. his campaign rhetoric was perfect, and I am glad that his campaign rhetoric is correct. As to whether or not there'll be follow through, I don't know. I hope. I'm skeptical, but we'll
Second
see,
term's always
man.
different. Second term's always different.
Yeah, well, once again, he doesn't have to get reelected if he wins a second term. So I was more hopeful for a second term. So I don't know. We'll see, man. I don't know what to think. So I'm not gonna make any predictions because once again, we know how this shit goes. We're what 54 days out now at this point. Way too fucking chaotic to tell. So Shane, it was awesome to have you on again, brother. I appreciate you doing this so much. A little bit last minute, but either way, I wanted to cover the debate, and I couldn't think of anybody else I would want to have on more than you. So if you want people to find you, let people know where they can find you, support you, all that good stuff, and we'll call it a night.
Yeah, I'm on X at Shane Chesher. Don't share too much stuff on there. Facebook under Shane Chesher. I share usually stuff daily because I think that's like the crowd you can reach the most that aren't like, but like there's so many shadow bans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do share, if anybody has Telegram, I have a channel called Patriotic Truth. I share stuff on there constantly. I do, if you don't have Telegram, if you're not new to it, I highly suggest muting notifications, but you can check it at your own leisure. But it's really, really cool. Obviously, Telegram's got into some censorship or whatever issues, not censorship, but some legal issues. So, but I think it's actually that's how I save all my clips and able to share to my story. It's a wonderful wonderful app that a lot of people don't really realize that you can use. So that's where I share the most stuff.
Nice, man. All right. Well, like I said, I appreciate you coming on, and I think we'll call her a night at that, man.
All right, man. Thanks.